So I'm going to demonstrate how to use the if function on Excel. And I have data related to aircraft component manufacturers. And let me just go ahead and widen some of this information so we see exactly what's going on. So we have several suppliers. We have things related to the order number, the item number. We also have we have data related to the item costs. We also have cost per order and so on. So let's say, for example, what we want to do is we want to take a look at, let's say, cost per order. And let's assume that any order that is, or better yet, let's just do quantity. Let's say any order that has a quantity of at least 10,000 uh, units, then that would be considered to be large. So let's create a column and let's give it the name order size. And what I'll do, I'll bold that as well. And I'll go ahead and give it a very similar format as the rest of the labels here. So I'll just go to the format painter once it's clicked on arrival date, and then I'll just click on order date. So we'll have even the border lines there. So I'm gonna go ahead and maximize this a little bit, and I'm going to hit the equal sign and type in if and open up that parentheses, and then I'll have different arguments that I want to fill out. So the logical test is going to be the condition. So what am I trying to say here? I'm trying to say if an order quantity is at least 10,000 units, then let's go ahead and label that as large. And if it's not, then we'll just go ahead and label it whatever we want. So we can say not large, we can leave it as a blank. So let's just go ahead and just for now, we'll just say if it's not large, it's small. So for the logical test, what I'll do is I'm going to refer to the first record that I'm dealing with, right? That first row in my data set. And we're focusing on the quantity. So I'll select the quantity for that first record. And I'm going to say if F4 is greater than or equal to 10,000, that's going to be my logical test. So if it is greater than or equal to 10,000, and then you'll notice here the second argument, once I hit a comma, that'll be bolded. And we have value if true. So what do we want in this case? We want to say large. So because large is textual, or another word for that is a string type of value, I'm gonna go ahead and open up quotes and type in the word large. Now, if we're dealing with some sort of numerical value, then we wouldn't want to put that in quotes. But in this example, we're gonna go ahead and deal with a value that is descriptive like this, and put it inside quotes. Now, if I close the parentheses and hit enter, we do get the value large because if we do look at the quantity, it is at least 10,000. In this case, it's 19,500. I can fill this out and to the rest of the records that I have here. And those that don't meet that condition will by default have a false value. Now, in our scenario, we're saying that if it's not large, then it's small. So I need to continue on with how I coded my if function here. So let me just hit undo, and I'm going to go back to my fx code, and I can let me just go ahead and just demonstrate. I'll double click instead of going to fx. I'll just double click on that cell, and then I can continue to modify what I had earlier. So I put a condition, and then I hit comma, and I said if it's true, put large. Now, if it's false, That's going to be that next argument. It's not bold yet because I didn't put a comma after my quote. Now let me go ahead and put the comma now, and now it's saying if the value is false, what do I want? So then if it's false, I want it to say small. So I'm opening up the quotations, typing in small, closing it, then I'll hit enter. It's still going to stay the same, but then now when I bring it down to the rest of the values in the data set, we shouldn't have the false values, right? So let me just adjust this a little bit, and you'll notice now instead of false, it will say small, right? And you can put any sort of value that you want here. It could be numeric or it could be textual. But in this case, we're just dealing with two textual values. Okay, so here what I want to do is take it a step further. Now let's say that the order size is large and the cost per order is more than $25,000. So we're dealing with two conditions in an if statement. And let me go ahead and demonstrate how that would work. So I'll go ahead and create a new column titled type. I'll give it the same format here. And I'm going to hit the if function. And since I'm dealing with two conditions, what I also will want to do is type in the keyword and. And now here I'll I'll specify the two conditions within the and function, and then I'll close that parenthesis. So notice that I opened up parentheses here. It says logical one, logical two. So put your condition or your conditions, and then close the parentheses, and then you can continue on with that if statement. So my first condition is going to say if the and I'm focusing just on the first record. If K4 equals large, and be careful here, you have to you have to enter the value exactly the way that it's shown in the data. It's case sensitive. So that's one condition, and then I'm going to hit comma, and that's my next condition or logical two. I'm going to select the cell of cost per order. So, and I'm focusing just on the first record, G4. And I'm going to say if it's greater than or equal to 25,000. So I'm going to say at least $25,000. And then I will close the parentheses. And once I close the parentheses and hit comma, the next argument needs to be filled out. So if these conditions are true, what value do you want to say, or what value do you want to output if it is true? So if both of these conditions meet, I want to say that this is going to be labeled critical. I want you to output the word critical. And if it's not critical, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and just close it off here. I'll press enter, and I'm going to use a filler option. I'll just place my cursor on the bottom right corner here and just double click. And we have false values just because I didn't specifically indicate what I want that false value to be output. So Excel will just automatically do that for me. And I'm going to go ahead and take care of that next. But just to show you that we do have order sizes that are large, but they're not more than or at least $25,000 in terms of cost per order. And that's why we have some false values here. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to that first record where I computed the if function for type, and I'll double click that, and I am going to put a comma right after the critical portion, and I will say give me a space. I'll put a quote and then a space bar, another end quote, and hit enter. Then I'll just make sure that this is going to be filled out to the rest of my records. And this is how I would want to, in this example, output my information. So just flag whichever ones are critical. And if they're not critical, just don't put anything there. Obviously, you can put whatever type of value you would want to. So hopefully this gives you an idea of how to handle an if function uh, as well as an if and function if you're dealing with multiple conditions. Now I want to take it a step further and let's just I'm gonna I'm gonna use another data field, call it priority, and I want to demonstrate using the if function along with the or function. Now, obviously, if you're using the or, it's a little bit different from and. Now, let's say, for example, if I'm saying if the order type is critical or if it's large, give it a high priority. So that means that when my conditions are being checked on Excel and it's looking at each record, it's going to look for the word critical or large. And if either one of them happen to appear on that record, then it'll give it some sort of output value. Let's say high priority. Now, if we said it differently and said, okay, if my order type is critical and it's large, give it some sort of value. And if we were to say high priority, in this case, in this example that we have here in the first record, that would also be high priority. But you'll notice here that there are some that are just, they don't have any value for the order type. So if we were to say that the logical function or the condition here would be critical and large, we know that this third record here is not it doesn't meet that condition, so it wouldn't shoot the or it wouldn't output that value that you have for true. So let's go ahead and demonstrate this here. I'll say if and I need to hit the equal sign. I'm going to select order type. I'm going to say if it's critical. Oh, before I do that, since I'm using the or function and that's what I'm trying to demonstrate, I'm going to say or instead of and I will select this value and I'm going to type in critical inside quotes. And I'll hit comma and then I'll next specify what my second condition is. And I will select the order size value and I'll say equals again, okay, equals, and I'll say large. If it's hard for you to read here, you can see the FX portion on what I'm writing here. So I'm going to close the parentheses and hit comma. So if it's critical or if it's large, I want to give it a high priority. And if it's not, then I'll just say not high. I'll close the parentheses there. I'll hit enter and let me just go ahead and do this for the rest of my records and this would be the results here, right? Now, again, this is different because it's checking for this or that, not this and that. So just a demo, let me just go ahead and demo that really quick. And if I were to change it around and say if L4 equals critical and K4 equals large. I want to say high, right? All of these are actual values, so putting them in quotes. So I'll put the word hi, and then if not, I'll say not hi. See if this works. All right, so this is a different example. So I'll type in priority with and here so we know what we're looking at. And this would be priority with using or. And let me go ahead and go off to the right here. And let me just use a filler option. So notice the results here when I'm using these functions that here, if we focus on this third observation in my if and, I have a not high, whereas with the priority or I do have high. Right? So condition, if you're saying this and that, both of them have to meet. But if you're saying this or that, well, only one of them would have to meet. Right? So these are how the logical functions work. Hopefully that gives you some clarity. I'll go ahead and do a control tilde on the spreadsheet so you can kind of get an idea of how I coded my if functions here, right? So and versus or.